Second.
I think we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we have 8 members.
Should we wait or we just let's start it?
I think we have 8 members, which is a quorum, so I think we should probably get started. And if more members come, then that's adding to the quorum, so that's a good thing.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 6:01, and I'm the vice chair, so I'm standing in for Maggie Parker, who's the chair, who can't be here this evening. And I will call this meeting to order at 6:01. So let's do a roll call, please, to verify who's here and that we do have a quorum. Michael?
Here.
Okay. Is Joe here? Joe Kazarek?
Joe is here.
You are here?
Can't say it again. Joe's here.
I can't understand what that was. Oh, yeah, there he is. Okay, I see him. Adam Rubenstein?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yep, here.
I know Karen's here. How about Angela? Angela Roberts? Okay. She's not on. Peter Henry? Steve, I saw you were on. John Mooney is on. How about Robert Gowdy?
Robert Gowdy's here.
Okay, great. And Gary Muffin is here.
All right.
Excellent. Okay, well, with that, we have a quorum. Do we have other members of the public or members of Fairfax County Department of Transportation or others who would like to identify themselves at this time?
Good evening. My name is Smita Chalapa and I work with May. I'm in the funding section of the coordination and funding division at FCDOT.
Wonderful. Thank you, Smita.
Sure.
And
This is
hi,
Tom Bashad, I'm the director of Fairfax County DOT.
Great, thanks, Tom.
and this is Mei Fan, work for Fairfax County Department of Transportation funding division.
Yes, the wonderful May who guides us through the internet to make sure we can do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any members of the public on the call? Nope, I don't see anything. Okay, so May, I think you can go ahead with our guidelines and FOIA procedures.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. So my name is May, and I work for Fairfax County Department of Transportation, Coordination and Fund Division. So welcome to tonight's Reston Transportation Service District Advisory Board meeting of March 31st, 2022. So to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both emergency procedure authorized by Virginia Free Information Act. And this advisory board needs to make certain finding and determination for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this Reston Transportation Service District Advisory Board is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all other members. Our vice chair, Kelly, who just conduct a roll call and ask each member participating in this meeting to state their name, and we didn't state the location, but we can do that later. I ask each of you to pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleague and make sure that every member can hear every other members. So Kelly, do you want to make sure if everyone can participating in like in different location and everyone can hear each other.
Okay, let's do that. We do the roll call again with people saying their name and where they are. There's been a little bit of chatter in the chat saying people are having trouble with static. So if you're not speaking, if you would mute, that might help. So let's start with Drainsville. Michael?
This is Mike Schindledecker, and I'm joining from Drainsville.
Thank you. This is Kelly Westenhoff, and I'm joining from Hunter Mill. Next is Joe.
Joe Kazarek, and I'm Hunter Mill District, but I'm joining from Reston Town Center.
Okay, Adam.
Adam Rubenstein, joining from the Hunter Mill District.
Karen.
Karen Mantilla from the Reston Town Center.
Did Angela join us? I think that's a no. I know she's not here, but I'll ask just in case. Is Maggie here by any chance? Maggie Parker? Okay, Peter? All right, Steve?
Steve Caniglio, I'm joining from DC.
Okay, John Mooney? John, are you on mute?
You're on mute.
I obeyed your suggestion. So yes, I'm here. I represent Reston Association, and I'm joining from home in Reston.
Okay, Robert?
Robert Gowdy, Executive Director of the Reston Town Center Association, joining from my home in Reston Town Center.
And Gary?
Gary Maupin. I can hear everything fine, and I'm at home here in Reston.
Okay, that's everyone, May. Thank you.
May, you're on mute now. Sorry.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you want Kelly? Do you want call a vote to establish that every member can hear every member? So please state your name to call a vote, motion, or approve a motion.
Okay, this is Kelly Westenhoff. I move that we accept that everyone can hear each other.
I second that. Gary Maupin.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, I think that motion carries.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kelly. So next, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compelled this emergency procedure. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged our public access to this meeting. The local emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such FOIA usually procedures, which requires the physical assembly of this board in the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. The board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated audio conference line, and that line may the public access this meeting by calling 571-429-5982. Now I will ask our vice chairman to call a vote to hold this meeting electronically due to the local emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Please state your name prior to call a motion or approve a motion. Madam Vice Chairman.
I move that we hold this meeting electronically in view of the emergency in accordance with the regulations.
Second.
Was that Gary?
That was
Mooney,
John.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Now the motion carries.
Okay,
Barb?
thank you. Okay, finally, so it's now required that all matter addressed on today's agenda must be addressed the emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government and or statutorily require or necessary to continue operation and discharge of this board's lawful purpose, duty, and responsibility. It's so moved. So
I
now-
so move.
oh no, we're good. So now I'm going to talk about the rules. So this meeting will be recorded. The recording of the meeting will be uploaded to Reston Transportation Service District Advisory Board website within 10 working days of the meeting to avoid sound quality and feedback issue. Participants should keep their microphone muted and less speaking. Please use the hand raise feature to ask questions or speak. Due to the sound quality and feedback issue, Teams meeting run best if speakers wait until they are called on to begin speaking. At last, attendees and the public at large may use the Q&A, the comment feature to ask questions during and after the meeting. So please hold your question until the end of the presentation or until I stop and ask the public the question. And also, to ask a question, please raise your hand and wait for the moderator to call on you to ask a question. Once you're finished, please lower your hand and click the mute. So yeah, Madam Vice Chair, I just finished our procedure guidance to have the virtual meeting and get us past the call to order on the agenda and pass the roll call. So next will be the approval from our December 7, 2021 meeting.
May, it has been suggested that I should log out and log back in to try to quell the static. So if I do that, obviously I can't do the minutes and things like that.
You don't need to log out.
Okay, but is the static driving everybody crazy?
No.
There's. I was
No.
just saying the static is hard to hear with the static. That's why I suggested that maybe she could log back out and log back in and see if that fixes it.
I'm wondering, do we need to approve the agenda?
No, not the agenda, the minutes from last meeting.
Okay.
So
I thought
you-
usually you approve the agenda before
Agenda,
you.
right. Agenda's always first.
There's no requirement to approve the agenda.
Okay.
The agenda was reviewed with the chair and chair was able to set the agenda. There's no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Oh, I think Karen had I think Karen had a question about the minutes.
Yes, thank you. The only question I had was with regard to the general discussion highlights. There were 4 questions there, and I don't know if there was supposed to be a date for follow-up with the answers to the questions. So if there was no date, then, you know, the minutes are fine. But if there was a date, I don't have it on the minutes.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'll double check the minutes and I will get back to the answer to you like after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I think there was a motion to approve. Was that you, John Mooney? You're on
Yes,
mute.
it was. Yes, it was.
Is there a second?
Mike Schindeldecker, I second.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes pass as presented to us. Thank you, May.
Thank you, Kelly.
Kelly,
Yes.
may I make a suggestion that the minutes be more detailed in the future? I didn't oppose them, but I think there was more in what we discussed, and I'm used to seeing minutes in more detail. So if you could think about doing that for the future, it would be helpful to me at least.
Okay.
Do we know who took the minutes last time?
Maggie actually take the minutes. So, and
Yeah,
anyone,
I'm sorry, I think Maggie's doing that because we do not have a secretary. Would anyone like to serve as secretary and take the minutes, and then they would be more detailed?
that's a good question. Anyone will volunteer this time?
Karen, your hand is still up, but I don't know if that's a leftover or a new one.
I don't know that I'm good at that, but I thought the county staff could do that. Can they take the minutes for the county meeting, and it would be helpful, I think.
So traditionally with the boards, authorities, and commissions, the secretary would come from a member of the commission. In this case, the advisor.
That was Ann Mater when we formed, but when Ann left, we did not have another secretary step up. I will point out that these meetings that are online are all recorded. So if we want more detail, we can go watch the video. But your point is noted, and I'll suggest it to Maggie. And I can guarantee she's going to be looking hard for another secretary. So, Karen, is that your hand up again?
No, I didn't raise my hand.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, Gary, you're taking the minutes this time, right?
No, I'm not a good minute taker.
Okay. So we can always design and rewatch the recording if someone volunteer to take the notes. I know I do not see Supervisor Alcorn here, but I just want to say it's anyone from the supervisor office here would like to say anything. I'll take as a no. Okay, now we're going to our presentation today. Can everybody see my screen, the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So today we will give 1 second. Okay. So today we will give Reston Transportation Project updates. And now we'll have a touch up with the service district money and the road fund rate adjustment up to today. At the end of the presentation, and today we will vote on the tax rate for FY 2023. Oh, sorry, should be actually 2023. I just want to call out our one of our staff took this meeting from took these photos from a new building in Reston, and it's a really beautiful photos. So I use it as a cover. Okay, so for Dallas Railroad, so it's a 11.2 mile silver line extension that including 6 new rail stations, 3 in Fairfax County, 1 in Dallas Airport, and 2 in Loudon. The project is 100% complete. The cleanup, inspection, and testing also have been completed. There's a punch list activities in the rail yard, station, system, and the track. Staff is doing the operational readiness testing and the simulated service runs. The pictures are showing the workers are finalizing the switch alignments and the maintenance of the escalator. There are 2 parking garages right now. It's also completed. So for the Herndon Station, the project has been completed and reopened to the public in January 2020. And the garage is 100% complete and open to the public in April 2019. And for the Innovation Center Station, it's currently in the warranty phase with a minor punch list item remaining. The project is also 100% completed, and it will be open to the start of phase 2 revenue operation. And here's some photos of the garage. And here's 3 photos of each of the Herndon Station, Innovation Station, and the Reston Town Center Station. They are all completed, so they're just waiting the metro rail to open. And here is operational readiness testing progress. So we are now between the substantial completion and operational readiness. So here we are just testing. So there are some activities such as WMATA conducts operational testing, simulated service, and UMWA and the contractor continue completion of the punch list. So there's no fixed duration and the contingent upon WMATA testing and completed when WMATA declare the operational readiness. And there will also be pre-revenue activities. It's going to last approximately 90 days and end with the start of revenue service. And here's the current activities. So for package A, the task to be completed is 81% and punch list completion is 73%. And for package B, which is the real yard work, and is 78% for testing and 95% for punch list completion. And safety and security certification process is ongoing. And UMWA and the contractor on punch list for package A and B is also ongoing, and there's one issue is unsolved. It's the heat tape deficiency. And WMATA hiring and the training is underway. And you can see some photos of people, staff is training at the field center and checking track profiles and the wheeling lesson training. And here's package A's photos, like the station platform ceiling. Here's the vending machine installation, and phase 1 and phase 2 connecting with the real yard and the screen wall. And this is real yard photos from overview. And here's the car wash and the electronic testing. And so Reston Parkway and the Sunrise Valley Drive and the Sunrise Valley Drive and the Herndon Station site, Ronk Drive and the Sunrise Valley Drive and Edmund Haley Drive. So those 3 intersections all have a part of the Dallas Phase 2. All 3 intersection improvements were completed. The last one is still waiting for secondary street acceptance for Edmund Haley. So these 2 projects, the Sunrise Hill Road at Reston Town Center Station. This one is we are adding signal for the new entrance to the Reston Station Kiss and Ride lot. This one is completed. Several punch list items are still being addressed. So here's a picture of the Kiss and Ride lot. And for the Fairfax County Parkway at Sunrise Valley Drive, this one already being completed. So that's all for the Dallas Corridor Metro Rail project. Tom, do you want to add anything to the Dallas Corridor Metro Rail project?
So I would just say that so far the operational readiness testing is going smoothly. There haven't been any significant problems that have been identified. And so that is, I think, due to wrap up probably in the next month or so, and then we can move on to preparing for actual revenue service. So I think we're very close, but there are still a few steps that need to be taken to get to revenue service.
Thank you.
May, this is Robert Gowdy. Can I ask Tom a question quickly?
Okay.
Tom, many of us have seen the reports from WMATA and Weidefeld's comments publicly that they've at least now come out and said no earlier than June 30th. That's the first time they've said that. That just came out in the last 7 days or so. Weidefeld has hinted that it could be later summer or even after the summer. I guess that would mean September 22nd, it starts the fall. I don't know if it's that technical. Do you have any further guidance on a no earlier date other than June 30th? I mean, it doesn't seem to me this is likely before August 1st.
Well, I mean, I don't have any further guidance, but basically the last testing, May, if you could go back to that slide. No, keep going back to the operational readiness slide. One more. There we go. Okay, so operational readiness testing, today is March 31st. They have not declared completion of operational readiness testing. It's going to be about 90 days for pre-revenue activities. So if they today declared that they had completed operational readiness testing, the system would be opening on June 30th or thereabouts. Since they haven't declared operational readiness yet, and it's probably going to be another 30 days plus or minus before they get there, you can infer from that that we're probably talking about later in July to early August. That assumes everything continues to go smoothly and that they don't find any major issues. But it's really a process of elimination right now, and I think the fact that Metro and the Airports Authority both said it's not going to be before June 30th is just a reflection of the reality that, you know, they haven't completed the operational readiness testing, and it's March 31st today. So I would say probably later in the summer is what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Ultimately, the Metro Board will set the specific date.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Tom.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. So we are going to the Soapstone connector. So Soapstone is an extension of Soapstone Drive from Sunrise Valley Drive over the Dallas Toll Rail to Sunset Hill Road. So it provides additional multimodal capacity on the new north to south alternatives. So it's about $235 million for the project. And the project right now is in environmental phase. A memo is under final review by Federal Highway Administration, VDOT, Virginia Department of Historic Resources, and Fairfax County. So DOT is planning to hold a public information meeting in spring 2022 to inform the public of the Association Drive Historic District, present the draft of the memo and the draft of Section 4F evaluation and the revised environmental assessment for the project. The construction will begin in early 2027, so it will be like about 5 years from now. And so here's the funding detail for Soapstone connector. The agreement between the county and the VDOT was executed on December 19, 27. So 79 million was requested from MVTA FY22 to FY27 and also smart scale application. But we should hear back from MVTA in summer of this year. And the total total funding is approximately $235 million for soapstone.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
And I guess this is for you, Tom. So when I compared the 235 million to the estimate that was that appeared in the Reston funding plan published by Fairfax County DOT in 2018, the total amount then was 175. So that's a 38% increase, which given the way prices are going and complications that have arisen, I'm not doubting that. What I'm wondering is, as we look at the rates that we approve. So the 2018 estimate was was in 2016 dollars. So are the rates that we are approving for the service district, have those rate increases or non-increases, as it turns out, taken into account this inflationary effect on our 2008 over our 2018 estimates?
So what I would say is that the service district rate is based on 2.1 cents per $100 value on property. And the value of property, and maybe we'll talk about this in a few minutes, has continued to grow in Reston. And it is always anticipated that over a 40-year period, there's going to be some peaks and valleys in the values of property. So as the value of property grows, that 2.1 cents generates more additional revenue. So we did take that into account when we were planning for the service district and the funding plan, recognizing that the even holding at 2.1 cents, it will generate more money over time because the values will be. Did that answer your question?
It does. So as I understand it, we're saying that the rate in property values, we are counting that to take care of increases in construction costs.
Yes.
And have we tested that hypothesis?
I mean, that's the same hypothesis we're using in Tyson's, and so far it's working pretty well. I mean, there's no question that inflation has grown pretty quickly in the last year. No doubt about that. I think in some cases it's approaching 7%, but we also had years where inflation was 1%.
Right.
So it is gonna vary over a 40-year period. There's no question about that. But the philosophy is that in general, the increased real estate values will offset those costs, those inflationary costs of construction. There's going to be a time where, the increase in construction costs isn't going to be 7%. It's going to be, less than 1% because of whatever the economy is at that particular time.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Steve, do you
I
have
have
a question?
I have a question too.
I'll let Gary jump in. My question was from the previous slide. Am I reading that right? It's taking 8 years through the environmental design for this road. Are you kidding me? Does that seem a little?
Well, no, we're not kidding. It has taken 8 years, and the main reason that it's taken 8 years is that a portion of the property that needs to be acquired for this road has been deemed historic. And as a result of that, we've had to work around, we've had to deal with that. And
Tom,
we still need.
Did Richmond vote that should not be historic, or did they vote that it did qualify as historic? And one of the reasons I asked, I know that some of the associations that are there and a couple of the developers that are interested in that area, they've been batting around like a cat with a mouse, whatever, on that same issue. So what was your understanding? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The decision to declare that area historic was a federal decision. It was made by the federal government.
But didn't they say it was historic eligible and they didn't just declare it historic?
It's historic eligible.
There's no difference between that. By saying it's historic eligible, we still have to follow all the rules if it actually was historic. So if they say it's eligible, then you have to follow all the rules, assuming that it is historic. And so that is a decision that was made by the federal government, and they're the ones that were through the environmental laws. And so that is the significant delay that we've had essentially 3 years dealing with that particular issue. Although I would say we're very close, as the slide notes, we have an MOU that has been worked out to try and deal with the historic issue. There will be a public information meeting coming up at the spring that will close out the MOU process, and then I think we can move forward with it.
All right, thanks. Very helpful.
Okay. Gary, what's your question?
So Tom, this is, I'll bring this up to you, and I hate to say this is the second time that John Mooney asked this originally, and I followed along. You know, people have brought this up to me. The Reston Town Center underpass is, in view of a lot of people, more important than this. However, I think your answer before is that, you know, if we don't continue to support this as a higher priority, we lose the money. Could you just quickly go over what the issue is here to changing the priority? I won't, you know, have you go through the whole thing, but.
So May, if you would flip to the next slide, please. So currently for this project, there's 156 million that's available, and most of that money is from the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. Mm-hmm. And when we apply for money, the money is applied for by a very specific project. So we didn't apply for money for like projects that bridge or tunnel under the toll road. We applied for money for the soapstone connector. Mm-hmm. And they evaluated our request based on the benefits of that project. If we say, you know what, we don't want to do the soapstone connector, NVTA will say, okay, that's fine. Well, we're going to take our 156 million back, and you can apply again to try and get money for the Reston Town Center underpass. We don't want to do that. We've, you know, as has been noted, we've been through this, you know, we're working on this now on 8 years going forward. We don't want to backtrack at the point where we're actually finishing the environmental document and being able to move forward really with the formal design of the project. If we decide we didn't want to do the project, the money goes back, and then we would have to compete independently for money for a different project.
Thank you. I thought that's what your reply was before, but since it's been brought up recently to me by a few people, I thank you for answering that again.
Okay. So we can continue to Road 7 widening. So this project is to widen Road 7 from 4 to 6 lane from Jarrett Valley Drive to Reston Avenue. It includes intersection improvements, shared use trails, and upgrade bus stops. The total project estimate is 314 million. And this project is halfway done, and the construction expect to be done by summer of 2024. Right-of-way acquisition is ongoing, and we are preparing for the temporary alignment of Colvin Brown Road. And here's a picture at the intersection of the DTR, the Dallas Toll Road, and Reston Avenue. So here's two intersection improvement. So one is the Fairfax County Parkway at Sunrise Valley Drive. So this one is nearly 30% design, and the total estimate cost for this is approximately $2 million. And the schedule to be determined when VDOT review is completed. And so expected in around May this year. An additional traffic and safety study, as well as design waivers and exception required by VDOT have been completed. And for Reston Parkway at Baron Cameron Avenue, the project estimate cost is $2.5 million, and evaluating additional building alternative of dual left turns on all approaches. Conceptual design scheduled to be completed in summer 2022. So in 2019, the Service District Advisory Board have agreed to allocate $500,000 for each of this intersection improvement. Today, later at the almost the end of our presentation, we'll also to discuss to allocate more money allocate more district money onto this two projects. We'll discuss this by the end of our presentation today. Did I see, Kelly, you have a question?
I do. I know these two intersections well, and I know we have allocated some of the funds towards improving them in the past. And so my question of Tom and his staff is, we know there's been a significant change in throughput for traffic because of the lockdown and then a lot of people not returning. And at what point do we factor that in and say, maybe we don't need to do as much as we planned to do prior to 2019? Where does that all come together?
Kelly, what I would say is remember, we're looking at the long view, 40-year view. Obviously, the last 2 years have been unusual, highly unusual because of the pandemic, but we have seen in general that traffic volumes have returned pretty close to where they were before the pandemic. However, the timing of when that traffic occurs is a little different. So the peaks are a little bit lower than they were, but the total daily traffic in general has been very close to where it was at the pandemic. So you're seeing more midday traffic, more trips in the midday than you were prior to the pandemic. But we're also looking at this, kind of the long view that over time, patterns will return closer to, they may never return exactly to where they were before the pandemic, but over time, and we're starting to see that now as well. Federal government is starting to bring people back. Many of the private companies are starting to bring people back at least a couple of days a week. So for these particular projects, given where they're located, I don't think that there's going to be any need to reevaluate the need for the project. I think there are at locations that we're going to need improvements in the future. We are, as you probably know, we are doing monitoring on a regular basis. And so we're completing the analysis of the most recent traffic updates. And we will probably summer have out. I think at a previous meeting, we went through the dashboard that's been developed for Reston. So we've done the next set of data collection for that. But we'll continue to monitor it over the 40-year plus period. There are going to be some peaks and valleys, but we'll continue to monitor and see how we might have to pivot with future projects.
Okay, I just didn't know how far along we were in being able to assess that impact and whether it was just a temporary suppression, but I appreciate it. And I will probably keep asking, just because my fervent hope is that people's patterns change and they actually do other things, but rather than building more roads. But thank you, I appreciate it.
John?
Thank you, May. I want to focus on just one phrase in here. The design includes cycle track on Sunrise Valley Drive. And I just want to note that I was brought into a recent discussion involving other members of the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force and Commissioner Carter of the Planning Commission concerning the configuration of the cycling facilities on Sunrise Valley Drive. And so I continue to serve as the chair of the Transportation Committee for the Comprehensive Plan Task Force. And we worked with the transportation planners on wording for the cycle facilities on Sunrise Valley Drive. And then we learned that there is a player that we had not accounted for. I believe her name is Weinertz, is that correct?
Nicole Winans.
Yeah.
Winans, Nicole Winans, is that who you're
Winans,
referring to?
yes, Winans. And so I just want to note that we hope to have conversations soon about the design of the cycling facilities on Sunrise Valley Drive with Winans and Commissioner Carter and the task force. So it's we're not aligned. We didn't know some of the design that's already been taking place, even though we've been working with the transportation planners. So I just wanted to note that, Tom, you may be aware of this, but that we're going to kind of refocus on this in the next little while.
Okay. Well, we're happy to sit down and talk with you about it.
Yep. Thank you.
Nicole Winans is a member of Tom's staff, in case you were unaware of that.
I knew she was in VDOT.
No, she's not in VDOT.
I mean,
she's in
not
FC.
VDOT, Fairfax County DOT.
She's a highly, highly skilled, competent member of Tom's staff, like all of them, of course.
Yeah. I'm just talking about, we've been working with the transportation planners, and this is a new input, and we don't know how we may have to adjust the comprehensive plan because of this.
John, if I could just add to that, she's been very helpful, Tom, in terms of what's going on this, and as was just brought up by Kelly, she is really pretty sharp on, what she's doing. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for all the questions and the comments. Okay. So so this is slides that give like updates of the Wheelie Avenue and the Dublin and OD Trail pedestrian improvement project. And we are working on a new pedestrian bridge that is planned to improve vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian access near the Reston East Metro Station. The bridge will be located on the W&OD Trail and extend over the Wheelie Avenue, replacing existing at-grade crossing. So the new bridge will accommodate both the gravel paths and asphalt W&OD Trail at this location. And this project is currently under the review by VDOT for constructing bid advertisement, and for the construction is expected to be completed by October 2023, and it's going to be begin in this year, October 2022. And if you are interested in more detail about this project, we have a website here. Always update if there's like stats. New status. And here's a picture of the rendering of the new pedestrian bridge over the Wheelie Avenue. Okay. So then it turns to our RMAC project. So there are 42 projects in the RMAC for now, and 32 already been completed, and 10 is underway, and the 4 projects as below here is scheduled for completion in the next year. As for the RMAC improvement project is all listed in this website if you are interested. And for the bike share updates, so the total bike share station in Reston right now, currently it's 35 bike share station. And DOT installed 18 new stations as part of the federal grant in summer 2021, and planning to install 2 more stations on each side of the Reston Town Center station. And also, I believe I sent out the Hunter Mill District project report status updates for those active transportation projects. We got some question regarding do we have a new Hunter Mill District project report? The answer is no right now, because the most updated one we have is August 2021. The February 2022 is under review, and it will be released and published once the board has approved it. Okay. And here's a map for the RMAX projects, and here's all the projects that are condensed in this area, in Reston area. And if you can see, the green one is already completed, and the purple one is it's under right of way phase, and there will be some others, and the green one is a completed roadway project. And yeah, Tom, do you want to add anything to this map, or we can?
So the green is actually completed bike and pedestrian projects. Blue are under design. You can see the Sunrise Valley Drive project that was just discussed, as well as some projects in the area around the town center. So as May has indicated, we've got 30 some of the projects have been completed, and there's all the others are at some stage of development.
Okay, sounds good. And I believe this was mentioned in the last meeting that Department of Planning and Development gave a kind of like introduction of this website about the data visualization for Reston. So there are 3 segments for Reston. So Reston Transportation Data Hub, and the zoning activity data, and also the Reston Urban Park. I believe you guys probably already browse of this website already. And if you're not, you can go ahead and go to this website. It's in the presentation slides. And this is also, we mentioned this last time. So the Reston Transportation Data Hub, there will be like a travel monitoring and transit monitoring, and the ped and the bike monitoring, and other infrastructure and project updates. Okay, so we are going to go on to the Reston Service District and the road fund rate adjustment and collection. So the Reston road collection started on 2017. The collection to date is about $18 million right now. And also the service district money collect starts 2018. And to today, it's about $8 million. And total is around $26 million. And as I mentioned before, in 2019, we the advisory board agreed on allocating 500,000 for each of the 2 intersection improvement down here, the approved project. So today, we are going to discuss and allocate more district money towards these 2 intersection improvement projects. So, and before our discussion, I would want to mention, so the first one, the Fairfax County Parkway and the Sunrise Valley Drive, this one is approximately $2 million for the project estimate. And the Reston Parkway and the Barron Cameron Avenue is approximately 2.5 million for the project estimate. So I'll see if anyone have a question about this too. And if not, we can continue to discussion about how much we want to allocate for these 2 projects.
I have a question, Tom. I know there's an incentive to keep improving intersections we've already started to work on so that we can get to a point where they are complete and built out. But my hope is that doesn't preclude your department from continuing to look at other intersections within this area that might need a little help, again, with traffic patterns changing. I mean, are you constantly looking at the whole picture instead of focusing on the 2 that we've already started to put money towards?
Yes, and one of the things we're kind of waiting for is for phase 2 to open, which, you know, and we anticipated would have been open by now, because the traffic patterns in Reston are going to change very dramatically when phase 2 opens. So we do have money lined up for a look at Wheelie that's not coming from the service district to kind of re-envision Wheelie from Sunrise Valley Drive to essentially just north of the WNOD. So we'll continue to do that in other parts of Reston as well. But until we get past the opening of phase 2, you know, we're dealing with kind of an artificial traffic pattern, particularly around Wheelie, and because the traffic is all concentrated because it's an end of the line station, but it's not anticipated to be that way, and nor did we anticipate that as part of the long range plan for Reston. So yes, we were continuing to look at various aspects of the network. One of the other studies that we have funding for now is the intersections that John Mooney and his group identified that are outside of the TSAs, that we'll continue to look at them.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Is that John or Gary?
John, are you going to ask the same question I'm going to ask, or?
No, I meant to lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Oh. Tom, would you mind just reminding me, at least, how the roads that are, you know, funded through the service district got assigned to this? I mean, we know the taxes to the TSAs, but what are, you know, if I looked at these projects like the Sunrise Valley one, how do I really know the detail of that and where, you know, how far that goes, and, you know, how much of it is applied to the service district? I mean, I guess the numbers are partially here, but of course, these are bigger projects if you go out of the service district, right?
Well, first of all, the service district money can only be spent within the boundaries of the service district. So there is no going outside of the boundary of the service
Well,
district.
I meant the TSA. So how do the roads get assigned that are within the service district? I guess it went back to the network analysis done in whatever it was, 2015.
Right. So the network analysis identified the comp plan identified what the improvements were.
Right.
The network analysis prioritized those improvements. And then what we're doing is using that to select projects that would then be implemented with the service district funding. As Kelly mentioned, that is it is a process that will be reviewed regularly to see, okay, well, in 2015, it looked like the next project should be X, but maybe in 2023 or 2024, it should be a different project. So we'll continue to evaluate that before we bring you any new projects to consider funding.
Okay, so some of this is also taking into consideration some of the new approaches or newer approaches in process for Sunrise Valley bike facilities.
Yes, the new approach for the bike facility will be accommodated as part of this project.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Is that Adam? Are you having a question?
Yes. I know you mentioned about doing a study on Wheelie Avenue. I had a question about pedestrian safety, because currently, if you want to cross Wheelie and the traffic going eastbound on Sunset Hills through Wheelie, there's 2 right turn lanes there, and if you're trying to cross, you got to contend with 2 right turn lanes, which is pretty dangerous. Is there anything that can be done in the interim until you complete your study to try to make it safer for pedestrians to cross that intersection, at least that one specific spot where you got those 2 right turn lanes there?
Talking about eastbound Sunset Hills?
Correct. To go south on Wheelie, to make the right turn to go south on Wheelie.
We can take a look at it. There's nothing, imminent that's being planned there. I think after the phase 2 opens, you'll see traffic volumes change significantly, and that will probably allow us to do some changes that we have not done in the past, because the volumes will be a lot lower.
I guess
but there's nothing immediate in the works for that.
One of the things I thought that might make it safe, DC has started to do, where I think New York City does this as well, possibly, where if someone pushes the crosswalk signal, it would then put at least either give you a head start or have a full red stop for a little bit to allow you to cross without having to worry about 2 right turn lanes coming toward you.
Yeah, that's leading pedestrian interval, and VDOT is starting to do some of those now. They have implemented a number of them in Richmond Highway Corridor, and they're looking to do that elsewhere in the county. So that is a possibility that could be done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all for the question. I just want to reiterate, so for the Fairfax County and the Sunrise Valley Drive, we're requesting $1.5 million. And for the Reston Parkway and the Barron Cameron, we're requesting at $2 million. So Kelly, I'll refer to you. How do we want to vote? How much we want to allocate for these 2 projects? Do we want to allocate the full amount for these 2 projects, or we just going to do the same as last time, just for 500?
So just to clarify, so the projects are, as May has indicated, they're both in about 30% design. And since the advisory group only meets a couple of times a year, we're recommending that you allocate additional money to the right-of-way and construction phases of these projects. So that's what the recommendation is.
I would like to hear if there's discussion from the members of the board.
I guess I wish I guess I'm familiar with both of these, but the context of why 1.5 million now, we're just getting this late this afternoon, and it would be nice to know the context of why we need it now. what is the funding requirement that led to this recommendation tonight? I heard, Tom, you just referred to it's only a couple times a year and more money is needed. Why is it 1.5 million in one case? And I guess I can't see what the other one is. Somebody's got their hand up.
Those are the estimates for completing the projects, the two projects. And May, if you go back to the previous slide, I think they're both listed
Okay.
there.
All right.
So I think May's question earlier, the advisory board can recommend funding the entire rest of the project, or you could recommend doing it in pieces, similar to way, initially we approved design money, and then right away would be the next stage, and then construction. But since the advisory board only meets a couple of times a year, staff recommendation is just to fully fund the project. But we can do it in pieces if you're more comfortable.
Well, and initially we did it in pieces because there wasn't enough money accumulated to go ahead and pay the whole bill. But if we pay the whole bill because we have the money right now, it allows them to keep moving forward instead of having to wait until we meet again. But Adam, I see your hand.
I guess I was just wondering, is it possible for us, because like it was already mentioned, and we got this information just, a few hours ago, a couple hours ago, for us to discuss this, in more detail rather than right now to determine how we want to approach this?
We can certainly do that. The advisory board is meeting again likely in the fall. To wait until the fall if you want to do that.
This seems like the best time to discuss it because we're all here and we seem to have trouble getting our fall meetings on everybody's calendars. Last year, we didn't meet until December.
Well, I don't think that was our issue. It's my memory, but.
Kelly, this is Robert. I'm not sure why we need to wait. I mean, these are projects that are underway. They have to be funded. We have the money. Fund them, get on with it. I mean, I guess the only question is, by funding them immediately now, is that somehow prejudicing or compromising any other project that's in the pipeline? And I'm sure the answer to that is no, of course. So why wouldn't we approve it now?
I see another hand, SC.
That's Steve, sorry.
Okay.
My question is, yes, we have the money, so it makes sense to probably spend it and get this done, but how does this affect developers or other folks and the contributions they'll have to make in terms of proffers, and how much money is this going to cost other people? And if we don't get the money and use the money that we have, is there enough stuff in the pipeline that we see coming where we'll be able to fund these down the road?
So this is related to the service district, so it doesn't have any direct impact on the developers other than that they pay the service district rate with everybody else. Ultimately, there is a package of projects that was to be funded with the service district. So these are two. In the future, we'll be bringing additional projects forward to you. Currently, there's about 8 million in the service district, 8.1 million in the service district. So far, 1 million of that has been allocated to the design of these two projects. So even if you allocate the rest of it for both of these projects, there would still be about 3 and some change to allow us to start future projects and keep those moving. The 18 million that you see from the road contributions that we've received, those will be used for grid links and missing segments, basically, of the grid of streets that's associated with the Reston comprehensive plan.
Okay, Mike, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. So I think these were approved before I was even on the board, I believe. So to cover the entire project amount, we're looking at the total of what, 4.5 million. Is there a distinct advantage or disadvantage of fully funding them now versus just piecemeal? I guess from the county's perspective.
Well, I think our recommendation is to fully fund them, and as Kelly said, then we'll keep moving, keep the projects moving, and then we can get them to the right-of-way phase, which is the next phase, and then to construction. We can do it in pieces. It's not, it would not be the end of the world to do it that way, but we also wanted to be able to show that the dollars that are being collected are being allocated to projects.
Out of curiosity, what's the estimated right-of-way cost for each of these?
For each of these, it's probably between 500,000 and $1 million for each of the right-of-way costs.
Okay, and is getting the approximate coverage for the right-of-way one of the key pieces that would hold these up later on? You want to show that you have the money lined up to purchase when needed? Is that the idea?
That's part, yes. So before we get in the right-of-way phase, we have to have the money set aside to be able to purchase the property that's necessary to implement.
Gotcha. So if we set it all aside now, then theoretically we would not have anything in the way to proceed with these two projects.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's also an argument in favor of the time value of money, that $100 today is $100, but $100 6 months from now, with the way prices have been soaring, that money isn't going to be as valuable potentially when we look at this again, and costs may have risen. So I think if the county can say we have this approved and can keep moving forward and billing against it, that's the money, that's the value of it now. But if anybody's really uncomfortable with going ahead and doing the whole amount right now and would rather do piecemeal and have them come back and tell us basically like you would your teenagers how they've spent the money you gave them already, I don't think there's anything wrong with that feeling either. But I want to make sure that everybody feels like they have a chance to be heard here and question all of this. Steve, your hand's up again.
I mean, Kelly, I totally agree with you, but that's if we believe that FCDOT will finish all this work immediately and contract
Right.
at a maximum. If this 6 and 8 months, the price 8 months from now is going to be 8 months from now price. This is going to be the $100 8 months from now value. I just don't have any confidence that they'll finish this in a timely manner, frankly.
Well, it's got a long ways to go. These projects have got a long ways to go. Especially Sunrise Valley's got a really long ways to go.
Adam, you have your hands up.
Tom, can you explain this in more detail for the Fairfax County Sunrise Valley intersection? What exactly you guys are planning on doing at that intersection?
Yeah. May, you can stay, keep it there. But basically, this is improving the westbound approach of the intersection. So as part of the Dulles Rail project, they modified the eastbound approach. So coming from the Herndon park and ride lot to, they did some improvements with the rail project. This project actually is improving the westbound approach to the intersection. So part of it is to additional capacity through, but also to deal with the cycle track that we referred to earlier. So there'll be bicycle capacity that's being added through the intersection as well. So it's categorized as a spot intersection improvement project. It's not a major redo of the intersection. And because the rail project has already worked on the eastbound approach, it's working on the westbound approach.
So besides incorporating the cycle track, what else is being done, proposed to be done to the intersection going westbound there?
So one of the turn lanes is being extended. I think it's the right turn lane is being extended. And there is also the looks like the northbound. There's also some adjustments that are being made in the northbound approach as well. So it's taking essentially the space that's there now and it's using it a little differently to meet the demand of traffic.
That's a major corridor for bicycle commuting because it connects Fairfax County Parkway Trail there with people who are coming through kind of over by the USGS area. And it's dangerous right now because there's the only thing that's right next to it is a really terrible sidewalk. I've actually had a crash there. Someone came around a corner on another bike and there just wasn't room for both of us. So I appreciate that this is being looked at. It also says there are more detailed drainage analysis, and I can vouch for the fact that it is a terrible drainage area, having ridden through some puddles and things. So I think it's work that needs to be done. I'm definitely in favor of it being done.
We do have a graphic that shows it. We didn't include it in the presentation, but we'll get it. May can send it out to you to show you the
Great. Looks like Mike has his hand up again.
Yeah, thank you. So I didn't catch this the first time passing through. Say we're evaluating additional build alternatives of dual left turn lanes at Baron Cameron Avenue. I guess why did we begin to evaluate additional alternatives if we had started to move through design phase?
That's part of the design. Is so when the original project was identified, it was identified as a second left turn lane from Baron Cameron onto southbound Reston Parkway.
Right.
So whenever we started design, we want to verify that that's what needs to be built. The original plan was, as John had indicated, I think done in 2015. So we always want to come back and say, okay, it's 2021, 2022. Does that still make sense? And so that's what this is doing as part of the conceptual design.
Okay, so I guess I haven't seen any studies related to capacity assessment at that intersection. From thinking about this and looking at a graphical standpoint, Reston Parkway parallels 286 Fairfax County Parkway. And I'm just curious as to what might have shifted in traffic demand to warrant the left turn lanes in every single direction. It's because I know Reston Parkway handles a fair bit of recreation and pedestrian activity.
Well, the original project is the current left turn lane is not long enough, and people wanting to make left turns to go southbound on Reston Parkway are hanging out in the through lane on Baron Cameron, and so the idea was to provide additional capacity. They're just verifying that if we're going out there to do work, that there's nothing else that we need to do there at that intersection. If we're going to be doing work at the intersection, we need to kind of do one project as opposed to do one project, then come back and say, oh, wait a minute, we need to do some additional projects here. So I don't know that they're going to come back and say that any additional projects are necessary, but that's something that we do routinely, is to look and make sure if we're going to be addressing one project in the problem in the intersection, there's not something else that needs to be addressed at the same time.
Right. I think my only concern would be if we're adding turn capacity on movements that may or may not need it, it might create a more attractive movement and encourage folks to use those movements when in reality they should be staying through on a different facility.
We're not going to add capacity where it's not needed. That's for sure.
Great. This is a great discussion, especially on these very particular items. I'm glad to hear it. Does anybody have anything else? I don't see any more little hands. This is your chance to ask. Oh,
I move we call the
Karen.
question.
I see a hand up from Karen.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm learning a lot being new here. But one of the things from our last meeting that I was interested in, Tom, you were talking about the infrastructure bill and the funding for infrastructure. And you mentioned that projects had to be submitted and then it was a competitive process. And I wondered if any were in the service district that were submitted.
So yes, soapstone was submitted, and now that the infrastructure bill has passed, there will be more money in what's called the state smart scale project process. So we will be submitting soapstone again if it isn't completely funded by NBTA. We've got a current application, and then we also have the ability to start moving on Town Center Parkway underpass, which we discussed earlier.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. That sounds very, very exciting. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Adam, your hand's up again.
Thanks. Sorry. So one more question for you, Tom. Wasn't there, or has there been discussion about having the intersection of Sunrise Valley and Fairfax County Parkway have one of those roads? I think have Fairfax Parkway go over Sunrise Valley eventually, so that you don't have to even have a light there like you currently do.
That's a long-term project to do interchange there at that location. But the purpose of these intersection improvements is to try and make some incremental improvements for a couple $1 million. Doing an interchange project is going to be 10. So we're trying to improve the situation without going to a full interchange when it's not needed as yet. But ultimately, the comprehensive plan does call for an interchange at that location.
Karen, did you have another question, or is your hand just still up?
My hand is down. It's not.
Okay. Okay. This is a really good discussion. So I think we might be maybe ready to move forward on the recommendation. Is there a particular wording that I need to use in order to make it legal and blessed by the powers that be?
I think all you need to do is like state how much money we would like to move forward and for these two projects. I think just like a formal statement of this.
Okay.
I don't think there's like any particular language.
So I'm not a numbers person at all. So please, again, tell me for each project what staff recommends that we allocate.
Okay. So Fairfax County Parkway and the Sunrise Valley Drive intersection improvement. The total project estimate is $2 million, and we already approved $500,000. So we are requesting $1.5 million.
Okay.
And for the second one, the Reston Parkway at the Baron Cameron Avenue, the total project estimate is $2.5 million, and with $500,000 approved, and we're requesting $2 million.
Okay. I know this probably doesn't fit your spreadsheets the way you do them, but that was where I was having trouble, was figuring out what exactly you were asking for, if it's the full amount versus, I guess we could have come up with an amount that was piecemeal, but there's no place on there that says this is what staff recommends. So that might be useful information for future, especially if people are looking at the information before the meeting.
Okay.
Sure, we can clarify that.
Okay. So with that, is there any more discussion on these particular projects in the allocation? Adam.
Are we going to vote? Are we voting on whether or not we want to give the full amount, or voting we want to do a piecemeal? Are those two options basically that we're going to vote on now?
Well, I think if we're going to do piecemeal, we need to give an amount. So if someone has a recommendation of doing less than what has been asked, we need to know what that amount would be.
Madam Chair, to at least start this decision-making process, I'll make a motion that the board approve funding in the amount of 1.5 million to complete the Fairfax County Parkway Sunrise Valley Drive interim improvements, and an additional 2.0 million to complete the funding for the Reston Parkway at Barron Cameron Avenue intersection improvement.
I appreciate that, John, but I don't think Adam had his question answered.
What I'm saying is, we could debate that, but one way to move the debate forward is to make a motion for one of the.
I understand that, but can we just answer Adam's question? Adam, did you feel like you got it answered? Of what the alternatives are here?
Well, I'd like to hear from some other members and see if we can come up with a suggestion for if we do, for what we can offer other than the full amount.
Is there anyone else who has any kind of suggestion as to not only what amount it would be, but why we would offer less? Not hearing that suggestion. Okay, John, can you please give your motion?
Okay, I move that the board approve $1.5 million to complete the funding needed for the Fairfax County Parkway and Sunrise Valley Drive interim improvements, an additional 2.0 million to complete the funding for the Reston Parkway at Barron Cameron Avenue intersection improvement.
Is anyone second?
This is
Second.
Yes, second, third.
Steve seconds, whatever.
Steve seconds, okay? This is the important part of our meeting, this and the money part. So all approved? I mean, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion passes and is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great news. Okay. So we'll move on to the road fund rate and adjustment. So this is the chart of the, as you can see, is the approved 2022 road fund rate. So the board approved the proposed rate on March 22nd, and those rates will be effect on April 1st, which is tomorrow. And so this rate has increased since last year because this rate adjustment is based on the CPIU rate, which has been for the over last 12 months, which is 7.5% increase for the inflation to match the inflation. Just give in case some people don't know, so for the non-residential, it's per square foot, and for the residential, it's for per dwelling unit. And here's the assessed value history that we had over the years. So it's a really good news that we can see the assessed value have been increased over the year, but the continued growth at this magnitude is not guaranteed. Hopefully it's going to increase.
So John, this goes back to your earlier question. This is the assessed value within the service district. And
right, and I actually did a calculation, Tom, so I pointed out a 38% increase in costs. If I did it right here, there's an increase from about 7 billion to 12 billion in assessed property value, which is 41.6% increase. So the hypothesis is working at least for the last 4 years.
yes, so you.
Way to go, Don.
Yeah. Okay. So next is the service district rate recommendation. So the service district tax rate was set at 21 cents per 100 assessed value in the 2022 adopt budget, and the board will approve the advertised rate on May hence this year, the rate can only be remain same or be adjusted down. So the staff recommends holding the rate flat at 21 cents in FY23.
Just to clarify, that's 2.1 cents.
Oh,
2.1 cents.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
2.1. Yeah, too many years. 0.
And why can this only be adjusted the same or down? Why not up?
So the board advertised tax rates on, I think it was March 1st, no, March 8th. And so they advertised keeping the rate at the same level. So once that it's been advertised, it can't be raised above that.
Okay, okay.
And the 2.1 was what was built into the original funding plan. And services.
Right. Well, I don't think we want to lower it, so I'd go with holding it the way it is.
Okay, yeah. So the next, Kelly, I will let you to go on the action to vote for the tax rate.
Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, may I make a motion to that effect?
Yes.
I
Please
move
do.
that the board recommend that approve the staff recommendation for holding the rate flat at 2.1 cents in fiscal 2023.
Madam Chair, I second that.
Was that
motion
Gary?
I second that motion by John Mooney to keep the rate flat for
Yeah,
2020.
well, that was Gary, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, the motion passes. Thank you, John. Thank you, members.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
I would like to explore a request with Tom Bishadny. Tom, I think all of the members of the committee are acquainted with the Reston funding plan draft cash flow, which was published in the fall of 2018, and I referred to it earlier. It's somewhat conceptual, as they say in the footnotes on every page. That the numbers can change and the time can change, but it's really a magnificent framework for analysis. I'm wondering, Tom, whether we could have a much simplified version of this to help us understand. So this is organized. The top part of the sheet are the uses, and the bottom part are the sources of funds. So we have counting the intersection improvements, counting the roadway improvements, counting the grid of streets. So we have 12 basic projects. And then we have, I think they list some 15 specific kinds of sources of funds, whether they're federal, state, local, or private. And both our road fund and our service district funds count as private. What I'm wondering, Tom, is without looking at how this plays out over these almost 30 years represented in these spreadsheets, if not longer, for the 12 projects, if we could have a spreadsheet that give your best estimate of today's cost of those projects, those 12 projects. So instead of having sources here, uses here, and uses at the top and sources at the bottom, if we could have a sources and uses spreadsheet, which would have rows, for example, with the 12 projects and their current estimated cost updated, and then the sources, so it's not always clear. We know who can be taxed in the service district, but so we know the boundaries of the service district geographically, but it is not clear whether at least I couldn't figure it out from the Reston Network Analysis final report, whether some of those service district monies can be used to serve the TSAs, but by improvements outside the TSAs, if I'm clear.
They cannot. They cannot. Service district money, no, the service district money can only be used within the boundaries of the service district.
Okay.
It cannot be used.
That's,
Okay. But
thank you,
what,
Tom, because I was confused, just like John, I think, in looking at that. And that would be very helpful just to see. I'm sorry for jumping in there, but that was my question earlier.
and is the road fund the same rule, or can that fund TSA serving intersections, for example, outside the TSAs?
Road fund also has a bright line around it, and the funding raised within the funding area. The funding area, I believe, is a little bit broader than the service district area, but within that area that of the road fund is the only place that money can be spent by state law.
So where it is raised, it is spent. Okay, so that is not in question. Okay, then maybe I don't need my simplified matrix of sources and uses of funds.
So I'm happy to work with you offline if you want it, presented a little different way. We could probably do that. But part of why it's done the way it is over that 40-year period, we're not exactly sure how each of those projects is going to be specifically funded.
Right.
When we did that, there was no federal infrastructure bill, and now there is. So, we're hoping to tap some of that money to do some of the bigger projects in Reston. Next year there may be a different, some new source that we haven't thought of. At the same time, there are discussions about potentially lowering the state gas tax. So that was one of the revenue sources that went into some of the state money that may change. So we haven't identified for each individual project which color of money, we call it, is going to fund each of those projects. So that's why it wasn't broken up individually. But as each of the projects progress, then we can show you, okay, these projects are going to be funded with NBTA money. These other projects might be funded with state money, that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a simple checkbox maybe, with, and I don't know how hard it would be. You may have already done so to already update the total project estimates for those 12 projects of if part of our job is to think along with you strategically, a big picture matrix like that may help us do it.
Well, periodically we do need to update the cost estimates for those projects, and we're probably getting close to the time to be doing that. Typically we do it about once every 5 years. So we're probably in the range of starting to do that analysis to update those cost estimates.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
And we could get that information before we meet again, if it's been finished.
If it's been finished, if you're not going to meet again till the fall, we probably can have it.
Okay. Well, those were our two major items of business that we had to do this evening. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up at this point, or can we call for a motion to adjourn?
Can I just?
Go ahead, Gary.
I have one question for Tom. Are you going to request more funding for the Town Center Parkway underpass? You talked about it in reference to another question. What is the plan for that?
So it depends on what happens with the NVTA funding for Soapstone. If the NVTA funding for Soapstone comes through, which we should know in the next month, then we would be able to start requesting funding for a second project. If the NVTA doesn't fund Soapstone, then we will request funding for Soapstone. Hey,
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm listening for a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
That was Gary. Does anybody second?
Here.
Karen seconds.
Karen seconds. All in favor of going about your lives?
I
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, members.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. See you in the fall.